Hello and welcome to Jtimes, where we uncover the Kabbalah take on Jewish issues and current events. With me, as usual, is Kabbalist Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello, Dr. Laitman.
Hi.
In previous issues, we were talking about the concept of integral education. You introduced a new concept in education called integral education. And if I remember correctly, you explained that in today's world, everyone is linked like that. And we are all interdependent, except we don't recognize it and we don't behave accordingly. We all want, to go our own way and be separate entities.
I'd say that the world is really now for a very long time interconnected this way, for dozens of years now. I'd say for maybe the past 100 years, starting with the First World War. But it intensifies, it goes and grows. The connection becomes ever stronger. But because people, meaning not the wisdom of Kabbalah, but because people do not have the method how to unite, how to connect. Okay, so we're interdependent, so what? So what do we do? If I'm not built that way from within, if I can't perceive everyone, grasp everyone, calculate everyone's benefit in each of my actions, so what can I do about it? Therefore, this fact, it's as if we want to kind of make it go away, disappear, cover it up, as if it doesn't exist, because we have no choice. We'll continue being the way we were somehow.
Yeah, we wipe it under the carpet and hope it
Yes.
disappears.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not disappearing. It is getting worse.
It's not disappearing for sure, because we're advancing. Evolution continues, and whether we want it or like it or not, we develop in the direction of becoming more integral, interdependent, and therefore we're in an ever-growing, unfolding crisis. And as long as this crisis does not touch our pockets, then okay, everything was kind of okay. So it's a crisis in culture and education, family life, divorce, suicide, drugs, helplessness, different things, until it now came to its final collapse, which is the financial crisis. And here we can no longer, meaning we have to do something about it. This is the sign that we have actually reached the end of the revelation of the crisis.
So that's the point where we discover that we have to do something with ourselves.
Yes.
In order to learn
Okay.
how to cope with the situation.
Oh, we could have started earlier, but we weren't that pressured about it. And therefore, now it's becoming clear to us that we have to do something about it, but still, like we see according to what's going on in the world, in the markets and so on, that they're trying somehow to nonetheless do something according to their theories and their previous paradigms with respect to education, drugs, divorce, and so on. We kind of, gave it up a long time ago. We became like accustomed to it, terrorism and so on. But where it has to do with food, nourishment, that are really bodily, animalistic bodily dependence relies on it, we have to
Especially
do
if you see
something.
the food prices rising all over the world, and the drought in America is causing spikes in prices of food globally. The price of gas, everything is rising. Cost of living is skyrocketing, and people are actually going hungry.
Yes, and all that on the background of there being everything abundantly, but the lack of connection between us begets all these problems. We throw more food than we need. I mean, even in recent years that there are now problems in agriculture and so on, we're producing much more than we need in order to cover the earth over with food.
2 years ago, I read a survey in CNN that said that each year we throw away 1.3 billion tons of good food.
Yep.
Just throw it away.
And it's enough in order to give to all the poor and get rid of the hunger in the world.
Absolutely. It's more than a ton of food per year for every hungry person in the world. Several kilos a day.
כן.
Okay, so what, integral education is
אבל
the
זה
answer?
הכל.
And that's it. The problem is, what's the reason? That we're not interconnected, that we're not united or connected with one another. We don't care. We don't feel that we're reliant on it. I don't care that half the world is starving to death. The main thing is what I have in my fridge and in the 7-Eleven next to my home.
That's why it's
and,
called
you know,
generation me, me, me.
Yes. But now we're reaching a state where, since it touches finance and work and our pockets, and there are really millions of people that are becoming unemployed, the problem, therefore, is becoming really troubling, critical. Because if here and there, people, they become unemployed, they leave the working market, then the country still has to somehow cover for their needs, help the unemployed, social security and so on, and give them their basic needs. But if we're talking about, if we're before a collapse, where really the big industry is starting to really show that it is no longer capable of existing, then something here is really, and millions of people, hundreds of millions of people are falling out of the job cycle, and who will provide for them? Even those small sums with which they can sustain themselves. And I'm not talking about the people that are being thrown out of their homes that they bought by credit and different other problems. So here we really have a big problem. And accordingly, we are here before a great wave of anti-Semitism.
Why is this going to lead to anti-Semitism?
Because if the world feels bad, always turns out that way, because the world, even if the world is well off, always comes with claims to the Jews, complaints to the Jews that we are the reason for all evil, that the Jews are to blame for everything. And if there's not that much to blame for, that everything's developing nicely and everything's fine, what the Americans had in the last century, besides the Big Depression that they had also for a few years. But eventually, there was a very nice and good development, so it wasn't really felt. The moment there's deterioration, like with the banks, the moment there was a collapse, immediately, who's to blame? Who's there? Who did it? The Jews.
Right now, there's a global wave of anti-Semitism. We can see in the United States incidents in New Jersey just last week, incidents in Florida, a few days ago, incidents in MSU, Michigan State University, attacks against a Jewish student. We can see it happening in Germany, where the rabbis are advising people not to wear yarmulkes and not to wear Jewish attire because they're afraid of hooligans, of anti-Semitic hooligans. And we can see academic boycotts in England. We can see it everywhere. And you're saying this is connected to the global crisis?
The anti-Semitism as a phenomenon is always there, only...
Yes, but this recent rise.
Yes. Undoubtedly. It's like it was in Germany. It's like it was everywhere. The pogroms of Khmelnytsky in Russia, suppose, it's the same. It always rides on the wave of hard life, suddenly a strong blow in economics, finance, and so on. It's the same force as animals, as the vegetative level, the animal world feel and live, and people as well instinctively. That's how it is. Anti-Semitism is within the nature of the world, since the origin of life is there in ancient Babylon, from where came those people who for the very first time found connection, unity between them. They found the method how to unite, how to connect with the source of the upper energy, the source of force and upper abundance. The Jewish people have that. And if that is missing in our world, I feel that they have it and they're not giving me that pipe. And therefore, I'm saying that we have to make sure that, God forbid, there will be no inclination toward that. And this is why we're sitting and having these conversations. And I hope that we'll proceed, that we'll be able to cure this, prevent it before cure.
Okay. And the practical cure that you're offering is integral education, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so that education concerns everyone, not just children, but everyone, adults, children, everyone.
For everyone. It's education for everyone, and for each and everyone in particular, regardless of who and what you are. It's for everyone, because the whole world is for a long time now in the integral system, and we have problems in everything. In anything and everything which we want to develop in, there is the shattering of the family and education of culture and everything. It's not only the current problem with industry and the finance system.
No, that's obvious.
So, therefore, it is worthwhile for us to start publicizing this.
I see. In the previous show, I think you linked integral education with Kabbalah, Kabbalistic education or something like that.
Yes.
So the integral education is Kabbalistic education, or education according to Kabbalah.
Exactly, one and the same. It's one and the same. It comes from Kabbalah. Kabbalah itself is the integral education.
So does that mean that everyone must learn Kabbalah?
There's nothing to study, but to study how to correctly be integrally connected.
Because I know that Kabbalists, that they study in early hours in the morning, and they study the book of Zohar and all kinds of sacred texts and whatnot. But you're talking about something else, I think, no?
I'm talking about something else, but there's a need for an explanation here. But eventually it's very close to what you said. The book of Zohar explains, and all the Kabbalistic texts, they merely explain the higher psychology, the unique psychology that exists in unity. What are the forces that unite us? What kind of actions do we perform over each other? How does the network between us function? How in the integral network of connections between us we suddenly discover higher forces, higher meaning forces of unity, reciprocity? How do we suddenly discover the force of bestowal and love? And how do we transcend the feeling, the egoistic feeling that our body has, into an altruistic feeling, into giving, into bestowal in that thing that's between us, which is called the force of the soul.
Oh, but you're not suggesting that every person in the world is going to have to study in the wee hours of the morning the sacred text of the Zohar and all that?
No. First of all, don't turn it into mysticism. It's very far from that.
Okay.
But the same as there is in any science, they're expert in any science that develop it, and they come and they adapt it to the population so that humanity can use it, and they themselves sit someplace in their laboratory or somewhere, in their office or something, and develop the whole thing. They discover it, they bring it down a lot in order to turn it into an educational system. So there are such experts, and those are my students.
Something like applied physics or applied Kabbalah?
Suppose I'd say that I'd explain it more or less psychology.
Applied psychology? There's the theoretical psychology.
Then there is the higher psychology, and there's the psychology which is the applied psychology that we have to implement it with the work groups.
Okay, so Kabbalists, they study the principles, and integral education is the implementation
Yes.
of those principles? Okay, I got it.
And that's what Kabbalah is all about. That's it. The Kabbalists, what Abraham did, he united a group, and in that group they started to discover new laws that exist in unity and wrote about it, and that's called the Wisdom of Kabbalah.
And this education, this implementation of the wisdom of Kabbalah, is something that's mandatory for every person in the world.
To implement.
Jew, non-Jew, men,
Undoubtedly.
women, children, adults, everyone. 7 billion of them,
Yes.
of us. Okay,
And therefore it says that you shall be light for the nations.
so that's the meaning of light unto the nations.
Yes.
So that's what
So
the
that's
Gentiles
what.
want from Israel? Integral education?
Yes.
And that's why they're anti-Semitic, because we're not giving them integral education?
Yes. Let's try. The moment we'll try, we'll start dispersing it, publicizing it. You'll see how they come to you as friends. Very easy to check. Because it's a part of nature. The moment you give him what he needs, he himself doesn't know how. He becomes your friend. He starts loving you. Just like now, instinctively, he hates you. The very same way, if you'll start giving him, relieving him some integral education, he'll start loving you. He has no choice here. It's not free choice. That's the response, automatic response. The biggest anti-Semites, like you read in Ford, they will become your lovers.
Now I want a promise from you. In our next show, we're going to talk about the principles, how to actually build integral education, okay, in bullet points. Can we do that next time?
We'll try to do it together.
Okay. So thank you very much, Dr. Laitman, and thank you all. And we're going to see you in our next show where we try to bullet point integral education. Until then.